Should the Broncos trade down from the number 9 overall pick? I'll ask you guys before we get into today's show. We've got a special one on tap, but I want to hear from you first. Get in the comments, type either Y for yes or type N for no. I'm going to be asking you guys some questions along the way, and I really want to know what you guys think, but it starts right here. Y for yes, N for no. And without further ado, let's get into today's show. We're talking trade down targets on the Broncos Breakdown. As always, I'm your host, Sam Brown. This is something that we've talked about a little bit recently, just kind of hinting at the idea. But today we're going to be talking about some actual targets in the draft that the Broncos could look at should they trade down from the number 9 overall pick. As you guys know, the draft starts in April, Thursday, April 29th. The Broncos currently hold the number 9 overall pick, obviously in the first round. But as we've talked about on a recent rumor show and in the past, they have the option always potentially to trade down for more assets depending on who wants to trade up, what the board looks like, what the draft order looks like. Really presents a bunch of different opportunities for Denver, and we're going to be breaking them down along the way. I'm going to go 7-1, starting with a player that I think maybe not as likely, and going all the way to the top, someone that might be a little bit more realistic, kind of based on fit, the possibility that they be there, where the Broncos would be drafting them, stuff like that. Number 7 is again, best case scenario kind of, but this is just a really fun idea to think of. Najee Harris, the running back from Alabama, broke out last season, really shined, broke the SEC single season touchdown record. As you see on that second line, in this scenario, it really only means either Phillip Lindsay or Melvin Gordon isn't back, and it really depends on who's on the board at the time, because I don't think you can draft Najee Harris until at least the mid-20s, and even then I'd be a little shaky about it, but the production nonetheless is stunning. I mean, look at his stats from this season. Nearly 1,500 yards on the ground, 30 total touchdowns. Like I said, the SEC single season record. Has had really 2 strong years. He's grown as a pass catcher, as you see, 43 catches this season, and presents a lot of potential as a running back. I think it's either him or Etienne for that top spot. I would give it to Najee Harris right now. And like I said, this is very unlikely in a realistic sense, but it's fun to think about. I mean, Najee Harris in that offense with Judy and Sutton and Fant, a man can only dream. So we'll go back to the pinned comment here. Should the Broncos trade down from number 9? I know a lot of you guys have some very strong thoughts about this, but I want to hear what you think in the comment section. Pinned comment down below. You can type your Y for yes or type your N for no. At number 6, we're going to get on a little bit of a run of offensive linemen here, starting with TEVEN Jenkins out of Oklahoma State. Big boy, listed at 6'7", 320 pounds, really a mauler in the run game. He's another guy that will probably go in the mid-20s. These kind of players, I'm thinking about teams like a Saints or a Patriots in the teens, a team that might trade up for a quarterback and could look to, give several draft assets to the Denver Broncos. When you look at the spot at right tackle, Ja'Wuan James, only 3 games in the past 2 seasons since signing with the Broncos. And TEVEN Jenkins has nearly 40 starts, most of them at right tackle at Oklahoma State. Wasn't challenged all that much by edge rushers in the Big 12, but still has potential to fill into that big frame, and I think could challenge Ja'Wuan James for that right tackle spot. Another guy here at number 5, Jalen Mayfield, who could play right tackle, a trade back option for the Broncos. This is a guy that is very much a tools, but not, he's got more potential than proof. And, he has the frame to develop into it. He's going to need some time, but he's got the athletic traits to shine. He could also potentially play inside, which is an interesting thing to think about because of his frame, about 6'5", 320 pounds. But he only, he mainly plays right tackle and offers really some depth early on, I think, and has the potential then to develop into a starter. Jalen Mayfield has all the tools you want in a high-end starter at right tackle. It's really about putting it together and really, shining in the NFL against NFL talent. So Jalen Mayfield, another option I like at 5, a little bit more upside than TEVEN Jenkins in my opinion. Now, what position do you think Denver should draft in the first round? Let me know in the comments section. I think cornerback is going to be a very popular answer, and for good reason, but I want to know what you guys think. Who should they draft? Maybe it's a linebacker, maybe it is an offensive lineman, or maybe you want to hit up on one of those quarterbacks in the round, or early in round 1. But get your votes in right now in the comments section. And if you want to see who I picked in the first round of my latest mock draft, you can always check that out on the channel here. It's youtube.com/Broncos TV. You can find it in the videos tab. I'm going to be doing a mock draft very soon again, but until then, this one might have to do. It's only 3 rounds, but I'm going to get a 7-round one the next go around. So be sure to stay tuned for that here at the Broncos Breakdown by hitting that subscribe button. We're going to be doing tons of draft coverage all the way up until draft night, trade down targets like this, breaking down some positional players maybe to target for the Broncos. So you don't want to miss it at all. Hit that big red button and subscribe today. All right, at number 4, I've got Alijah Vera-Tucker, another offensive lineman here and another versatile lineman. Played guard his first 2 years at USC before shining at left tackle in 2020. So this is really more of an option on the interior, and he's got a lot of upside, more upside than the Broncos have right now. I do like Reisner and Glasgow, but Alijah Vera-Tucker it's pretty much a best prospect available kind of situation for Denver because it's not the biggest need for them overall. But he had a good season in 2020. The 4 sacks, I think, is a little misleading in a sense because he was very strong in the run game and also offered really some bright spots in pass protection as well. So I like Vera-Tucker as a potential trade down target for Denver as well. Really somewhere in the teens, really, if you're thinking about it. We're getting into our top 3 Denver Broncos trade down targets here on the Broncos Breakdown. And we're going to start with an offensive lineman, Christian Darrisaw out of Virginia Tech, a 3-year starter at left tackle for the Hokies. But I see him as someone who could start day 1 on the right side for Denver. Juwan James has only played 3 games in the first 2 seasons in Denver since signing with the Broncos. He could provide insurance on the left side as well. Darrisaw, really strong in the run game, an absolute mauler, and has the frame to really shine in pass protection as well. This is a guy that I really like in that mid 15 to 17 range. If a team like New England or the Bears or Washington wants to trade up and really make a move for a quarterback, I think you could get decent value in a trade, go back down to 17 and get a starter at Christian Darrisaw. When you look at this offensive line, I think the Garrett Bowles right now, obviously he's entrenched as the starter at left tackle. Juwan James's future is a little iffy after the last 2 seasons. I think Reisner and Glasgow are strong, but you could always offer a Darrisaw, a Vera-Tucker in the middle to always strengthen that area. I think you might see a little different offensive line come week 1 because I think there's some interesting free agents to look at, but there are also interesting prospects like Christian Darrisaw that George Paton will have to consider in his time leading up to the NFL draft. So I just gave you 2 offensive linemen. I want you to choose one, either Alijah Vera-Tucker or Christian Darrisaw. Get your votes in the in the comments. I think when you look at the offensive line, Christian Darrisaw might be a bigger need. Vera-Tucker might have more upside, so it's really a matter of preference, but I want to know what you guys are thinking in the comments. So AV for Alijah Vera-Tucker or CD for Christian Darrisaw. At number 2, a prospect that I absolutely love. Let me take a breath before saying his name real quick. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Try and say that 10 times fast. This guy is a perfect fit at linebacker for the pass-happy NFL. Covers really well and would offer Denver some various defensive looks because he's played slot cornerback, he's played safety, he's played linebacker at Notre Dame. It will take some time trying to find his fit, kind of similar to Isaiah Simmons in that regard. But man, he flies to the ball. Had 2 really strong seasons at Notre Dame. In 2020, 62 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, and 1.5 sacks. As you can see, 5.5 sacks in 2019. I mean, he can blitz as well, which, like I said, offers the Broncos some various looks in what they want to do with Chubb and potentially Von Miller, Malik Reed in that pass rush game. But Owusu-Koramoah is a guy that a lot of people are going to love. I love. He's very light at 216 pounds, but man, he's athletic as hell. He's going to fly to the ball. He's pretty solid in the run game, but his coverage skills are incredible and perfect fit for today's modern NFL. So Owusu-Koramoah comes in at number 2. And at number 1, I've got Jaycee Horn, a cornerback. Who would have thought? The son of former Pro Bowl wide receiver Joe Horn, who some of you may know. He's a little different from the Farley and the Surtains. He's a very athletic and a physical cornerback, whereas Surtain is more about technique and Farley is more about speed and man-to-man coverage. Horn shines in man coverage, but he's probably that number 3 cornerback in this draft class behind Surtain and Farley. But cornerback is such a need for Denver that I don't think you can pass up on Horn if he's a guy that you can target in the mid-teens. 100 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, and 2 interceptions in 30 games at South Carolina. That's something that's going to give me and some scouts a little bit of concern, is his inability to turn that coverage into interceptions. But the eye test doesn't lie. I think this is a guy that you see shine on the football field. The traits are there. He had some tape against Auburn, Tom Downey likes to say, where he just balled out against Seth Williams, who was also going to get drafted this year at wide receiver. I think that Jaycee Horn is an intriguing prospect. If you decide to trade down from 9, pass on maybe a Surtain or a Farley, best case scenario, they might be there at 16 or 17, somewhere in that range. But this is a guy worth considering as well. In my eyes, the number 3 cornerback behind those 2 guys, and a guy that Denver should strongly look at leading up to the NFL draft. You heard my top 3, you heard my list. Now I want to hear from you guys. Name a player that the Broncos should trade down for. Let me know in the comments. I'm going to be going back through the comments afterwards and seeing what you guys have to say. So be sure to let me know. Maybe it is one of these guys that I had, a Owusu-Koramoah or a Jaycee Horn, but let me know in the comments. We'll run back through these one more time just so you can see them. Jaycee Horn, my top trade down prospect for the Broncos. Owusu-Koramoah, the linebacker out of Notre Dame, very versatile guy. A couple offensive linemen here back-to-back, Darrisaw and Vera-Tucker, who I think offer some intriguing versatility for Denver. Jalen Mayfield and TEVEN Jenkins, 2 guys that will need some developing, but could really shine in the right role and over time. And then Najee Harris at number 7, just a really fun guy that I would think for the Broncos. You throw him in at running back in that offense, why not? Plenty of more draft coverage coming up, but get your comments in there, get your votes in, be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.